Hey guys, so today we're going to be going over the gear that you need to start your photography business. Okay, first off, you don't need a huge amount of things. You really just need the basics. So I don't know if you've ever heard the saying that the best camera that you have is the one that you have on you. And what that means is basically, even if you just have a phone or a lower grade camera or whatever it is, you can start creating content with whatever you have. And I do agree with that to an extent. So potential clients are looking for photographers and videographers to provide them with high quality photos and videos. So they're looking for someone who isn't going to show up and create content with like a phone or just like a little point and shoot camera. They're more than likely wanting someone to show up with their camera and create quality content. Now, with that being said though, I'm not saying you have to go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on the best camera to start up your photography business. I always suggest just getting the bare minimum and getting practice in with the bare minimum. Another reason why I don't suggest going out and spending thousands on a new camera, new equipment, and other unnecessary things is because honestly, you might lose interest in it as a career path or a hobby or a side job. And you've invested thousands of dollars in all this stuff, and yeah, you can resell it, but I always just suggest, like I said before, to just start small so you can at least get out there and start practicing. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the basics of what you need to start your photography business. Okay, so obviously the very first thing is buying your camera. So I'm a Canon shooter and I started out with the Canon Rebel T3i, and I think any of the Rebel series cameras are good to start out with. And if you don't want to shoot Canon and you prefer another brand, you can do your research and just kind of research like a good starter camera. When you found which camera you want, I would get on eBay and see if you can find anyone selling this camera. That way you're saving some money instead of going out and buying it brand new. And just keep in mind, this is just to get your foot in the door, get some practice in, start your first few sessions, and then from there, you can decide when you're ready to upgrade your camera to something better, if this is something that you want to continue doing. And I would suggest buying a camera kit. Usually the camera kits come with like the camera body, a lens or two, and a battery. And really that is great to get started with. And if you do go on eBay and look, sometimes people are selling their cameras with a couple different lenses, a few different batteries. You know, you'll never know what you find on eBay when people are just selling their camera and everything that goes with it. So you might end up finding an even better deal than just simply getting a basic camera kit. And then when you get your camera, you can just start practicing on friends, family, your kids, your pets, anything. You can just start practicing. So the second thing that you'll need is editing software. So you can get an Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop combo package for $9.99 a month. And if you're just wanting to start out and you're just wanting to start practicing at first and you're trying to be as cheap as possible about it, you can probably also go online and find some cheap photo editing software. Or to just start out with, maybe you can even use the basic editing tools when you open up a picture in Windows. Just do some basic edits there. I wouldn't stick with that way of editing long term, but if you're just starting out and practicing, it's a good way to get you familiar with the basic editing tools like the brightness, contrast, shadows and highlights, and things like that. I edit with Lightroom and that is what I would suggest doing, but there's other software out there. Okay, that's all you need to get started with photography and start practicing editing, practicing shooting. You do not need to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, but seriously, I do have some more things to list off. So number 3 is a camera bag. So I just got my camera bag on Amazon and I love it. And I've traveled with it and it fits great under a plane seat and I've been using it for a few years now. But when I was first starting out, I just used the little bag that my camera kit came with, and that's what I used for my photography bag, is just what the kit came with. And I didn't actually get a camera bag until a few years into my business. Okay, the next thing would be buy a couple of extra memory cards. And when you do buy memory cards, this is one thing I would not be cheap about, and I would not get any off-brand memory cards, and I would only stick with the on-brand, like the SanDisk memory cards. That's what I use. Any memory card has the chance of corrupting or something happening to it, but I think the on-brand, like SanDisk cards, have just a better reputation than probably the off-brand cards. And if you think you're going to be getting into weddings, I would suggest getting a card that is no less than 128 gigabytes. And even if you're able to afford one bigger than that, that would probably be ideal too. But I would have a couple memory cards, especially when you start doing client work. So that way, if you are on site somewhere and you run out of memory, or something happens with your memory card, like it corrupts or just anything happens, you have a backup and you don't have to be like, hey, I have to leave the shoot and go to Walmart and go buy a card. That won't be very professional. So just make sure when you start doing client work, have at minimum 2 different memory cards, SanDisk. So the next thing that I would buy is backup batteries. And if you're going to start getting into weddings, I would have at least 3 or so extra batteries. Or if you only have 2 batteries, I would at least know that where you're going to be will have an outlet so you can be charging one battery while you're using the other, and vice versa. And I have bought off-brand batteries before and they were okay, but I ended up just buying a better like Canon battery. But again, if you are just starting out and all you can afford to buy is an off-brand battery, it may not last as long, but if that's what you can afford, I think it's going to work just fine for you until you start making more money to be able to invest in the pricier things. And just always make sure when you go to a session or go to weddings that your cameras are charged and you bring your chargers with you, because you don't want to be in a situation where you show up and you've accidentally forgot to charge your batteries and it's an outdoor session, so you have nowhere to plug it in, and you know, you always just want to be prepared. So the final basic thing that I would buy is a flash. And like I said, you do not have to start out with more than just your camera. But one thing I do suggest is getting a flash eventually. The first couple of years of my business, I don't think I bought a flash. But the situations that were helpful to have a flash was when I used to do weddings. And sometimes weddings, you'll be in certain rooms, like getting ready rooms, and the light is just terrible. And it's good to just have that flash with you so you're not getting terribly lit photos in these dim locations. And another thing is, if you're doing any other indoor shoot, you might not always know like the lighting situation wherever you're going to shoot, or if your shoot ends up being on a really cloudy day and it's just dark inside wherever you're at, it's always good to have a flash as a lighting source. Okay, so there was my list of the basic gear that you need to start your photography business. And also check out my video of things that I wish that I knew before starting my photography business, because I also have some other tips in there that I wish that I knew as a beginner. And I will also link that in the description as well. So I hope you got some valuable information from this video, and I will see you in the next one.